We want to welcome you guys to L3 Perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Glenn Davis. I'm sitting here with my guy, Cameron Macias.
It's your boy, Killer Cam.
What's going on, guys? We want to welcome you back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. I'm sitting here with my guy, Cameron Macias.
What's up, Coach Cam?
And we're excited to have you guys back. For everyone watching, for anyone listening, very grateful for you guys to be plugged in as we continue to provide value through our organic conversations on life, love, and leadership.
Yes.
Cam, I'm going to toss it over to you. I'm excited to introduce today's guest.
Glenn's always excited. Hey, so before we forget, as per the usual, you guys, like, love, share, comment the podcast. We do this for you all, so please spread the word. If there's something you like, something you don't like, please let us know. If there's a guest that you think we should have, let us know. At the end of the day, we talk to people because we want to provide value for you all, and so the feedback we get just makes it even better.
Yes, this is about to be an interesting, dope conversation. I want to introduce this brother. I've had the opportunity years ago to be connected through my wife, through their circle, and I'm very grateful for that. But Billy Wroe is an individual that I really admire. He's done a lot in the community. He's doing a lot in the world, connecting great men together. We'll talk about that in this episode as well. But Billy, man, I appreciate you hopping on, and thank you. And let's have a good conversation. But Billy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll dive into it.
Yo, man. Well, first off, thank you, and I appreciate it, Cam. It's great to meet you. Looking forward to interacting with you. But just a little bit about myself. I'm pretty much an everyday person. I don't see myself larger than life. I see myself as a person who was put here with a purpose, like many of us were, and many of us are. And I'm just trying to live to that purpose. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a mentor. I'm a coach. I'm a business leader. There's so many different things that I'm doing. I'm an author. But at the end of the day, I'm just Billy Wroe. That's all that I am. I'm just the person that God enabled me to be, with a heart of compassion for people and a very specific heart of compassion for men, based on some of the challenges that I've gone through in life. So that's who I am.
Got you. So I've had the pleasure of sitting on a panel with Billy just last night. Right? It's funny how timing happens. And Billy, so you've brought some men together to have a platform, a voice to help other men in the world. And I was gonna wait to bring this up because, like I said, it's still fresh in my mind from last night. That was a dope conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about like what you put together and why you put it together?
What was put together was a space for a community to flourish, for men. The reason I felt like that space was needed is because of, like I said, I'm just an everyday person living an everyday life and having an everyday experience. But I am very aware of the connection or the crossover between our human experiences, specifically as men, whether that be dealing with depression, whether that be struggling financially, whether that be dealing with anger issues. Like, I'm very sensitive to that. And because I can see that there's a lack of that space available, especially when you look at like the robust nature of the internet, and to see like there's not a lot of that space where we can as men flourish in, it became extremely important to me, almost priority number one outside of my family, for me to create that space. I'm very big on, if I think something is needed, I don't wait I'll look for it, and if I can't find it, I'll create it. And so last night's conversation being about a topic of love, like men needing love, the inherent need that we have as men to receive love and to really understand love for ourselves. That topic for me was just, it's something that I've struggled with since adolescence. It's not a new topic for me, but it's something that I can find that it's like, yo, we've been struggling and suffering in silence for a long time. And to even hear one of my brothers, who I went to elementary school with, still friends with today, his family and my family are tight. To hear
Yeah.
that he struggled with suicide, and last night's the first night that we're sitting and having that space to have that conversation. And all these years
Hmm.
that I've known him, I wouldn't have known that that's something that he struggled with. So that's why I created that space. That's what it was about. I seen the need, and I filled the need. And if it's not for me to fill, then I ask God to lead me to the people who are designed to fill it.
Hmm. No, I feel that. That's So I grew up. I'm a only child to a single mother.
Mhm.
So I always tell people is like, I didn't grow. I grew up in a very open space. Like I was able to like express my feelings. Like I was taught what like love is. You know, and as I grew up, a lot of people would kind of tell me like, "Oh, it's so sorry for you. You don't have your father around," things like that. And I remember thinking, well, unfortunately, a lot of kind of the masculinity that I've seen in a lot of fathers, I'm like, I kind of like the way that I grew up with my mother because there was kind of like this, not that expectation, right? Like, be a man, don't cry, stuff like that.
Right.
Obviously, does a kid want a dad? Of course. But sometimes I'm thankful. I always tell my mom, like, I'm thankful for the way that I grew up, even though I moved around a lot, even though, I didn't necessarily have a father per se, but I had a lot of strong male figures around me. And so as I've become older, like, I've been blessed enough to, I don't necessarily have a lot of those kind of barriers I think a lot of men have when it comes to expressing their feelings or like wanting or needing love, right? Like if I want to be a brat with my fiance, I'm like, look, I need some love right now. Like come sit next to me. I'll put your feet on. Like I need some contact.
Right.
But I know that is hard for like a lot of men to express.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an awesome time last night, man. Like just being able to be around other like-minded individuals who were willing to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and be in that space because as I was sharing with Billy, there's not a lot of times that you have men coming together where you could just be transparent, open, and
Yeah.
honest, and also walk away feeling like you've taken something away. There's an exercise. Billy, towards the end of it, as he was closing out, it was super dope, man. We were just kind of talking about different things based that closing out,
Yeah.
and he had brought up an exercise. Billy, I'm gonna let you share that.
Yeah.
But what I was telling him, what he's about to say, I was telling him, it made me think of like, hey, you know what? I'll be bringing the family together this weekend,
Yeah.
and we'll be doing this exercise.
Yeah.
Got you.
So the exercise actually didn't start off as a love exercise. It starts off as an annual exercise that my wife and I do. We sit down every year we sit down at the beginning of the year and we write out what our financial strategy is. What do we want to do as far as our investments? How much do we want to contribute to savings? What do we want
Hmm.
the percentage of our income to be to the budget? Like we sit down and we go over these things, and then we also have our 3 and 5 and 10 year plans for retirement. And I'm sitting there in this group of men, and we're talking. I know the topic is about love, and I'm like, yeah, we do this exercise annually to make sure our finances are straight. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, there just was like this light switch that said, hey, why are you not doing that when it comes to your love? Like making sure that
Hmm.
your love is in this space of not that love has to be planned, but that you have some kind of
Mhm.
vision, going back to what Sean was saying last night, that you
Yeah,
have some kind of vision for what your love is supposed to look like year
Hmm.
after year. Like this year, this is what it's supposed to look like, but also these are what we're looking for in year 3, 5, 10. And so at the end of it, I was just like, yo, we have some work to do. Number one, starting off with what does love look like to self? Like, and that's where we landed
Yeah.
at last night, was a lot of this is derived from self love. But then
Yeah.
to the exterior or externally, what love looks like within our family, what love looks like within
Mhm.
our friendships, within our relationships, and really building out that vision of what love is going to look like for the year. So that's what Glenn is going to be doing. I almost called you Cam, Glenn. I don't know why I would do that.
all good.
You
I'm gonna
wish.
encourage Cam too, because no, it's
The-
all good.
but yeah, but that's what we're going to end up doing this weekend as well. And I've already talked to my wife about it. I'm big on accountability in the sense of, hey,
Yeah,
look, I said this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let the weekend pass, and then it's like,
yeah,
oh,
Mhm.
we didn't do it. We'll get to it next weekend, and then eventually it's a new year and you never got to it. So that's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
exercise we'll be doing this weekend.
I brought that up because, so last episode, Cam and I were talking about vision and, like casting vision. And then one of the questions he had mentioned, or one of the statements he was talking about, like a lot of times, like how often do you hear people talk about bringing the family together to cast that vision? It just kind of goes in alignment with that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that was something I think that was so even though, like I said earlier, I was able to like communicate stuff and know my feelings, um, only within probably the last 2 years did I really understand that though. Is like what is love to me, right? So those that know me know like, I was previously married, I got divorced, and one of the things that happened was neither of us knew how we wanted to be loved, and then once we figured it out, it didn't match, like and it was one of those things where it was the perception to my children too. So I have 3 children, and so with their mother, and so I remember, with my fiance now, like we had those conversations. Like I was like, look, this is what I need. Like, what do you need? Like, so that we can figure out if this is gonna work, because we're in our 30s. Like this is any time to like just date and hang out. Like I got kids. Like we doing this, we doing this. So let's have these like deep hard conversations about what is respect to you, what is love to you, like all those types of things. And I remember it came to pass when one of my children was said, "Hey, I noticed that you and Net don't argue like you and Mommy used to."
Mm.
And I said, well, let me ask you this. Their mom, she's with someone. I said, do they argue? And she said, well, not really, actually. And I said, sometimes people are just better at communicating with other people than they are with each other and stuff
Right.
like that. And I said, that's what we try to explain to you guys, is that it's not that me and Mommy don't love you. It's just that together maybe it just wasn't the best fit,
Right.
and that's okay. And so, but that was something I had to learn and really take kind of self reflection of, is like, what am I willing to tolerate and what am I willing not to tolerate?
Right. Setting those
Hmm.
boundaries is
Yeah.
it's really important. And because I've been divorced as well, and in that divorce, I learned
Hmm.
it was like when you feel a certain way, like
Yeah.
when you instinctually feel a certain way with a person, and that
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know what it is that's frustrating me. I forget, somebody said last night it goes from something like misery to frustration to
Mm.
something else,
Resentment.
irritation, resentment, right? Like
Yeah.
that was like the path. And when that just kind of nags at you at the in the background.
Hmm.
And so when they do say, hey, can you pick up your socks, now it's an argument. Why are you always telling me to pick up my socks?
Leave my socks alone,
Yeah.
I
man.
want to put those
These ones
back
don't
on.
match.
Yeah.
So
Go pick up your own socks.
right, don't worry about my socks. So it's interesting that though, like I said, that human plane of existence that we live on, where once we get that epiphany and we have that realization that, yo, this is what I'm looking for, and it's kind
Hmm.
of unrealistic to expect this person who I didn't tell in the beginning that I was looking for, that to say, okay, well, now
Yeah.
I'm going to provide all of that to you, even though that's
Right.
like
Yeah.
outside of the deal. So I definitely get
Hmm.
that. It's good that you were able to recognize that and move forward into a healthier relationship with an understanding of what you were actually looking for.
It is. It's very important because like
Hmm.
those are things that really, really impact life,
Hmm.
right? And so again, being able to recognize that, being able to do those self reflections like we were kind of talking about last night,
Hmm.
to be able to move forward, and because it's not only like your choices and your decisions are not only affecting you, especially if there are kids involved.
Yeah.
It's going
Right.
to affect your community
Hmm.
that's around you. So speaking of life, so I know you're originally from Sacramento,
Yes.
right? From the heights.
DPH.
So from Del Paso Heights. Um, as far as life, how did life impact you or inspire you to be the person you are today?
Well, growing up in the Heights did help that a lot. um,
Very, very eclectic.
yes, it was a very eclectic experience. The the thing that's funny is I remember I grew up literally in the Heights. I think I was born in like Antelope for 2 months, and then I moved to the Heights.
Okay.
Mm,
And I remember when I started attending school, my mother had me go to a private daycare. She
Hmm.
had me go to a very nice public kindergarten. And that's where I really
Yeah.
learned how to speak like properly. And so like then I
Mm-hmm.
go to first grade in Del Paso Heights.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
apparently everybody's household was not practicing proper grammar. So
Right.
my mother was really concerned that I'm sending my baby into this school that's in the neighborhood because of convenience and finances. Like we
Mhm.
needed me to go to that school, and
Yeah.
the challenge was is she thought I was going to be picked on. She was like, they're going to pick on my baby.
Mhm.
They're going to eat him alive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I remember my mom telling me, she said, look, nobody is allowed to put their hands on you. If somebody puts their hands on you, you put your hands on them.
Yeah.
And for the next 3 years, first, second, and third grade, I probably was in a fight every week,
Okay.
every
I
other
feel it.
week. But I was in a
Yeah.
I
fight.
feel it.
And it was like, sometimes I would go to the bullies who were bullying other people and say, no, 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 come and do that to me. Because I got permission to
Mm,
change your life.
yeah.
Right.
Just touch
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Just touch me. Just touch me. That's all I need you to do. That's all I need you. Just one finger and it's a wrap.
So what that did though is it put me in a space to where I became hypersensitive. I was probably already a
Mhm.
hypersensitive child, but I became hypersensitive to the struggles of others. Seeing
Yeah.
other people being bullied and being like, yo, like they wouldn't do that if that person wasn't that person.
Correct.
Right.
And so another thing that I found in that was being in a public school in the Heights, I was ahead of my classmates. And so
Gotcha.
they wanted me to move out of my class because they had earmarked, hey, some of these behavior issues that Billy's having, that's because he doesn't have any work to do because he's done with his work. And
Yeah.
Right.
He's
so
bored.
I was offered to go to like some Gate elementary school, and
Oh yeah.
I turned it down. I was like, I don't want to go there. My friends are all here, like a
Yeah.
typical
Yep.
I'm
child.
staying in the
Yeah,
heights.
Yeah.
I'm
And so are
staying.
so are all my victims.
It's here.
Right?
Yeah.
You know how much chocolate milk I get on the schoolyard right
Exactly. So I ended up in this space where it was like I'm going to stay, but all of a sudden teachers knew how to keep me engaged and how to keep me occupied.
Mm,
And I think from a world perspective, like probably when I hit like junior high and I started seeing other spaces besides the Heights, that's
yeah.
Mhm.
when my life really began to pivot and turn. I still was making knucklehead decisions, but I was able to go to like UC Davis for 5 weeks in the summer and do forensic science and do
Mm.
Oh wow,
neurobiology
that's cool.
and do things like that were pulling me out of the Heights and showing me and introducing me to other children who it
Yeah.
wasn't like you're a nerd if you're smart. And even though I was smart and
Hmm.
people thought I was a nerd, they also knew that I could fight because I made that
Right.
very
Yeah.
clear that
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
want to fight, you can get
Yeah.
1 + 1 = these two hands. So,
Yeah.
so,
I
but
love it.
that's where I kind of came from, man. Just being in the Heights and was able to
Yeah.
run the streets back then. Just be home before the street lights come on. I was a
Yeah.
latchkey kid. I had to take meat out of the freezer to make sure it was ready for dinner when my parents got home to cook. Like
Mhm.
those small little things are what kind of groomed me to who I am today. Even
Yeah.
whether it comes to how I am as a parent, I'm trying to make that experience for my children better. But a lot of that
Yeah.
foundation is from the household that I grew up in.
Nice.
What's
Nice.
what's the latchkey kid? I've never heard that before.
Oh,
You're so
what?
California. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's
I never heard. I feel like I've maybe have heard it, but I don't know what it means.
Gotcha.
It's a kid who has their own house key. So in first grade, I had my own house key, meaning my
Oh,
when
house key kid.
no latchkey
Latchkey.
Oh, it is
because
Yeah.
the
latchkey.
It's a
key
Oh,
latchkey.
okay.
unlatches
Yeah.
the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was latchkey kid. I was a latchkey kid.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. You were.
I'm part of the club.
Yes. Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
So
you said
generally
you were in a
those
single
kids.
family, a single mother at
Yeah,
home. I'm
yeah.
sure you was a latchkey kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you have to kind of be responsible for yourself because
Yep. Oh,
single
definitely.
parent at work all the time. Yeah.
So
Not
that
having to raise yourself
So
apart.
that's an interesting point because like even though I grew up like that, like so there's 5 kids in my house and my oldest Ivy is 10 years old.
Okay.
And it's weird for me to almost tell my kids that they're trying to be like too independent or too adult.
Mm-hmm.
So like my daughter Ivy, she does help out a lot. But sometimes I have to remind her, like, yo, like, you're still a kid. Like, enjoy being a kid.
Right.
Like, I used to do these things, but I could do this thing and then go run and play outside.
Right.
Like, and I could change the gear real quick. And so, that's one of the things, like, I try and tell my kids a lot. Is like, you guys have chores, but it's not necessarily because I want you to grow up faster. It's just that once you grow up, you'll be prepared.
Right.
I still want you to enjoy being a kid. Trust me, I understand that you guys don't want to do it and it's not fun. Like, on the way to school the other day, I let them all get out their gripes and complaints. Like one person was like, "Oh, I don't like this," and I said, "All right, go ahead and just let it out. What don't y'all like about your chores? You know, maybe we can find a solution to something else,
Right.
and a different way to do it. You know, and but yeah, I definitely bring that upbringing with my children as well.
That's good. It's enhancing the process from what you
Mhm.
experienced, and for us, I do believe because we didn't have a whole lot of electronic distraction, so you were
Yeah.
either in your house playing in your imagination or doing a chore,
Right.
or you were outside playing with your friends. There was no, I mean, maybe there was a TV
Yeah.
show you sit and watch Saturday morning cartoons, but it's like if somebody comes and says, "Hey,
Yeah.
Ro, you want to play basketball?" TV off,
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Then I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Right.
We
Yeah.
outside until the street lights come on. Like, and the court,
Exactly.
the street light by the basketball court comes on before the one by my house. So I last shot, boom, and I got to run all the way to the house before the next one comes on. But I got it. So
Yeah.
it is interesting. But I think from the perspective of our children and their experience today, it is important to kind of keep some of that balance for them to help
Hmm.
them be children. But even with
Yeah.
my children, I tell them, I'm like, hey, look, I'm not a helicopter parent, meaning I'm not going to hover
Yeah.
Mhm.
over you to make
Right.
sure you can do the things that you already know how to do. When you know how to do something, I'm going to hover away from that and allow you to
Hmm.
operate in that space. And it doesn't mean you're going to get it right all the time. You're going to load the dishwasher
Right.
with food in it. You're going to put
Right.
Yeah.
all your clothes in the washer at one time. Like, you're going to do these things, but you're going to learn. And eventually, when you're no longer in my household and you're in your
Hmm.
own household, you're going to know how to do those things without somebody having to hover over you.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's man. You're talking leadership now. You know what I'm saying? Like, from coaching, and it's funny because I don't know that enough of parents really view raising kids as a leadership,
Mm.
right? Like, how are you? I mean, because you're coaching them through process. Excuse me. If you want them to be effective, you're coaching them through the process. Like, if it's washing dishes, at first they don't know how to wash dishes, so you
Yeah.
gotta coach them through that process. Like you were mentioning about, like, I'm not a parent that hovers over you. I'm going to show you. I'm gonna guide you. I'm gonna coach you through the process, and then I'm gonna shift left a little bit, and then to expand your responsibility. So as you were saying that, the word leadership just kept standing out to me, and so I know earlier you had mentioned as far as author.
Hmm.
And I felt like as I'm reading your book now, by the way, thank you for sending that out to me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Not only does he have a book, he has a journal that goes alongside of it to where you can actually take pauses in the book, do some self reflecting, which again, I feel like not enough people do.
No.
So it encourages you to stop, think about what you just read, and to kind of write down your thoughts, your input, your feelings, etc. And so I want to kind of transition into that while we're talking about leadership, because I feel that part of what I'm getting from the book is that, hey, here are some practical principles on how you can actually be successful in a sense. All right. And so as a leader, that's important because you're impacting people, you're impacting your readers. So can you just kind of take a second? You have a book, you launched a book called Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Where to start with that book? First off, that book was a long time coming for me. I've had plenty of
Hmm.
people, hey, why haven't you written a book yet? And I'm like, I don't know. But when I got to the space that it was time to write the book, the flow was amazing for that book. But that book, when a lot of people hear the title "Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion," they think immediately, "Oh, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna make money doing all these different things that are my passion." And I'm like, that's not really what the book is about. Like, if I were to like
Yeah.
replace words in that title, it would be fire your distractions and
Mm.
hire your areas that you have focus and influence in. That's what that book would really be about. It would be about those things because as we remove distractions, we allow ourselves to have bandwidth to do the things in
Yeah.
life that we want to do. That's why the very first chapter of the book talks about, yo, you got a job to do. Like at the end of the day, we need money to make these lights come on and this internet to work.
Yeah.
So I have a
Hmm.
job to do, but what am I doing to make that job not cause so much pressure in my life that it takes priority over things that it was never meant to take priority over? And
Hmm.
so from the book's perspective, it just walks you through from that all the way to the end. It walks you through how do you begin to reconnect with the things that you're passionate about? How do you begin to reorganize your life in a way to where it works for you instead of works against you? And so like in our
Hmm.
household, that's why we have a financial strategy meeting annually, is because we want to make sure that we're in balance with what our goals are. My goal is not to work forever. I told my wife
Yeah.
I have 13 more years of work to do, and wherever I land financially in 13 years will be the path we take. But I'm
Right.
Yeah.
planning and strategizing things. So we buy real estate, we make investments, we save money. Our budget right
Hmm.
now is about 38% of the income that we bring into the house. That's like our
Mm.
expenses, 38% of the income that we bring in. And some of that even includes saving additional money. So
Yeah.
those things, that's what the book really is about, is to kind of act as this guide along from the perspective of experiences that I've had in my life. And
Mm.
there's a lot of stuff in there that's like just things that I don't think you would typically tell people about yourself.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But I'm the lesson to me is always bigger than the shame can ever be. Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
there's some shame in my story or there's something that's embarrassing in my story, the one thing I know is that I'm writing from the perspective of Billy in the future at 42 years old. I'm not writing from the
Hmm.
perspective of Billy at 28. That person
Hmm.
was not a person that I wanted to be. Hence, I changed from being that person.
Yeah.
so
For sure.
so that's what the book really is about. It's about helping people reflect inwardly more frequently and in a manner that is structured. That's why there's a journal, so that you can write kind of
Hmm.
what you're hearing
Hmm.
and what you're discovering about yourself along the way. And when you get to the end of the book, I'm not going to ruin it, but when you get to the end of the book, you'll understand why there have been so many exercises to get to this pivotal point where now you have to make a decision. And it's not
Hmm.
Hmm.
quit your job. Just spoiler alert, it's not quit your job.
He will tell you that about the end of the
Yeah.
book.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, where does first row come from?
Ah, so when I was younger, about 18, 19 years old, I had a business mentor um, who taught me very early in life. He said, Billy, we were in network marketing. He says, the people who sit on the first row make the most money because there's no distraction
Hmm.
between them and the person providing the information. Um, and
Mm.
so outside of
Like
the
that.
money aspect, it was the information. There's nothing in between you and you get the raw information from that source that you're gleaning it from. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, I think in 2013, 12 or something like that, I started really expanding into like inspirational speaking and coaching
Hmm.
and mastermind groups and things like that. And first row kind of fell in my lap. My last name is Rowe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I decided, okay, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to do a Wednesday word. And it literally was me going live on Facebook with my cell phone in front of my face, about 5 to 7 minutes of a video, moving on. Um, and over time, it was like, okay, I kind of need a name for this because I'm just doing this Facebook thing, but I need a name. And I was like, okay, well, do I want to associate it with my role? I don't want to call it Billy Rowe. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. But then I
Hmm.
thought about that mentor and how he said this information, how when there's no distraction in between you and the information, you glean the most. And I was like,
Hmm.
first row. Fortunately, my last name is Rowe, but first row.
Yeah.
And even if my last name wasn't Rowe, the name of this probably would have still been first row because that's how
Okay.
I see information. You're literally having like you're in my basement right now. There's
Yeah.
nothing in between me and you. There's no facade or anything going on. It's
Hmm.
the real me that you get when you're
Yeah.
interacting with me. And that allows me to share as much of my experience as possible, to be transparent and vulnerable as possible, so that you can
Yeah.
glean the information that you can glean from my experiences, and send your information back to me so that I can learn from you along the way as well.
That's dope.
Dig it. So as we kind of wrap up, Glenn always has a question. He loves to ask our guests. So
I do. I do. I love it. So the L3 perspective, life, love, leadership. That was my lean in.
yeah,
That was the one lean in.
I wasn't gonna say that. I wasn't gonna say that.
Life, love, or leadership. Pick one of those three and share something that's on your heart so that our listeners can kind of hear. If you had to close this out and share something on one of those three words.
Well, especially after last night, it's definitely going to be love. Because I feel like love is the source to life and leadership. It's really hard to lead somebody if you don't love them. You'll lead them astray, because you won't do,
Yeah.
even unintentionally, you'll lead them astray because you don't love them enough to do the research to get them in the right position. You just, oh, best guess is this. Good luck.
Yeah.
Life, it's really hard to live life without love. I told last night, the example I used was, you could say, Billy, I'll give you $1 billion and you'll live for the next 30 years, but nobody will love you. I wouldn't accept that. I wouldn't take that. And so it leads me to love being super important to everything that we do, because a lot of men, a lot of people prematurely take themselves out because of the lack of love. And there's something about love, like beyond the feeling of love. Oh, I feel it in my heart, or it feels nice to be loved. There's a confidence and a surety that comes with love, that especially self-love. Once you love yourself, it doesn't matter who likes you. It doesn't matter who's against you. It doesn't matter what people think about you, because that love component will carry you through all of that. And so for me, if I had to pick one, I would say it would absolutely be love. Life and leadership are important, but I would not say equally important.
I love it. Speaking of love, I
I can
love
dig
it.
it.
I will say this was a conversation that really reminded me that regardless of where you are in life, or regardless of the situation that you're currently in, your situation doesn't define your destination. And so, here you have who was once a young man in Del Paso Heights, California, a certain individual who has morphed into a great man, a great father, a great husband who is impacting so many people. So with that, Billy Wroe, first row, I appreciate you for tuning in, man, and connecting with us. To all of our listeners and watchers, pick up that book. Pick up that book. I'm a couple chapters in, and it's making me do a lot of self-reflecting. And I'm doing it not necessarily just for me, but more so because of the people I impact. And so with that, Cam, you want to close this out, brother?
Well, first, tell people where they can find you.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why I'm co-pilot.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube. Pretty much almost all social platforms, at firstrow.com. You can find me. So it's STWROE, all one word. You can find me anywhere. I mean, you could just put it into Google. I'm sure you'll be able to find me. You could actually now finally put Billy Wroe into Google and find the book. You can find also my social media handles there.
That's
Bet.
dope.
All right. Well, hey, as per the usual, guys, like the episode, share it, check out Billy's book, and then, let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Let Billy know. Reach out. Other than that, we appreciate you guys rocking with us for another week, and you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace.